The pipeline came at dawn, a mechanical serpent chewing through the heart of my family's 200-year-old Texas ranch. Diesel engines drowned the meadowlarks that had greeted every sunrise since before the Alamo. Steam rose from the torn earth like blood from a fresh cut. "Enjoy your dry pipes, cowboy." The voice sliced through the roar, laced with the smug certainty that only inherited money can buy. I turned to face Evelyn Hargrove, her coral power suit a violent splash against the brown soil, platinum hair unmoved by the wind that whipped dust into my eyes. Her heels sank with each step, but she advanced like a general reviewing conquered territory. Behind her, a 300-year-old live oak crashed to the ground, the sound of an empire ending. "Should have read the fine print before you bought this little weekend ranch," she said, waving a folder thick as a Bible. "Unanimous HOA approval, plus $50,000 in fines for noncompliance. You really should attend our meetings." My prize Herefords huddled against the far fence, displaced from pastures their grandsires had grazed. The underground springs that fed this land since Spanish missions dotted the horizon now ran thick with diesel and silt. 2 centuries of stewardship erased in one morning. "This ranch predates your cul-de-sac subdivision by 80 years, I said, tasting dirt and rage. "My great-great-grandfather raised longhorns here when this was nothing but mesquite and Comanche trails." Evelyn's eyebrows arched like theater curtains. "How charming. A history lesson from someone who doesn't understand modern property law." She snapped open her folder. "Rural properties failing current zoning can be reclassified under eminent domain, especially when blocking essential infrastructure. The 3rd generation of Harrisons watching corporate greed take our land. Grandfather fought the railroad in the 40s. Dad battled highway expansion in the 70s. Now my turn, except this time the enemy wore lipstick and carried HOA covenants." What Evelyn didn't know was that 30 years supervising oil fields had taught me to track every permit, every penny, every environmental study. When your livelihood depends on paperwork, you learn to read between the lines suburban presidents never notice. The first mystery hung in the humid air. How does a homeowners association claim authority over land patented before Texas was a state? Sheriff Delgado arrived with lights painting the devastation red and blue, his face etched with the weariness of a man who'd seen too many property disputes. "Morning, folks. Call about interference with authorized construction." I produced county records showing continuous Harrison ownership since 1838, original land grants, signed by Sam Houston himself. "Sheriff, this ranch has permits predating the HOA by a century." Evelyn's confidence flickered. Modern easement law supersedes historical claims when community safety is involved. Then Laura Bennett appeared, clutching her 6-year-old twins, both girls wide-eyed at the horses they'd seen from their backyard. "Mr. Harrison, we just moved in last month." The girls wanted to meet who takes care of the horses. The human moment cut through legal posturing. "Those would be Storm and Thunder, gentlest animals you'll meet. Bring the girls by when this mess clears." Evelyn's suit snagged on barbed wire as she stepped forward, tearing with satisfying finality. "There will be no horse visits. This area is rezoned for residential development. Agricultural activities violate safety standards." Sheriff Delgado studied both sides. "Need to see actual easement documents, not HOA resolutions." Evelyn produced her master plan, maps dividing everything into development zones, environmental studies claiming ranching posed greater risk than industrial pipelines, and worst of all, $25,000 per household assessments for community improvements. Laura went pale. "That's more than my annual salary." Even the construction crew paused, calculating how this war might affect their paychecks. Sheriff closed his notebook. "This needs court. Mr. Harrison, you have rights to representation before collecting assessments." As his cruiser disappeared, Evelyn delivered her ultimatum. "We can bury you in paperwork until you beg to sell for whatever we offer." She believed she held all cards because she'd never met someone who understood the game better. That evening in the offices of Harrison Financial Forensics, my brother Benjamin occupied a corner suite that looked like mission control for corporate warfare. Monitors displayed spreadsheets complex enough to make accountants weep. "Ben, I've been waiting for your call." We hadn't spoken civilly in 6 months, not since our Christmas argument about selling the ranch. Ben chose numbers over cattle, spreadsheets over sunrises. But blood recognizes blood when wolves circle the herd. How well do you know this HOA? Well enough to know they hired me 6 months ago to clean their books. Ben's fingers never stopped typing. Found discrepancies that would make auditors blush. The coincidence settled like dust after a stampede. You took the job. Pays well and stays legal. What I found kept me digging. He spun his monitor. 400,000 public debt, but forensic analysis shows 2.7 million in contingent liabilities to shell companies tracing to one name, Whitaker Energy Consulting. The name hit like a branding iron. Whitaker destroyed Dad's operation in the 70s, forcing sale for a gas plant that never materialized. Same family, same tactics, different generation. Ben lost his first office building to Evelyn's HOA 5 years ago. Same pattern, escalating assessments, legal fees, foreclosure. He'd rebuilt from nothing, keeping meticulous records of every dirty trick. So we buy their debt, I said, understanding dawning. Control the debt, control the HOA. Ben's smile belonged to a man who'd waited years for this moment. New board, new priorities, new fee structure. The plan formed with mathematical precision. Shell companies to acquire debt without revealing ownership, financing through Ben's investor network, legal structures to restructure governance for actual residents instead of corporate profit. 6 months of legal battles would bankrupt them. We needed 6 weeks. Dawn brought EPA Regional Supervisor Karen Mitchell's call. Mr. Harrison, we've suspended pipeline permits pending investigation of federal waterway violations. Your groundwater contamination reports triggered immediate review. Federal jurisdiction trumped local HOA authority like an ace over a deuce. 3 days later, we owned controlling interest in HOA debt. 1 week to restructure governance. 2 weeks to implement new fees, 60% reduction for residents, triple for absentee investors and corporate owners. The emergency HOA meeting filled the community center with families facing $18,000 assessments for unexplained improvements. Laura arrived with her twins, both girls pale from drinking bottled water since their well turned to diesel soup. Evelyn took the podium in fresh coral. Outside agitators threaten our community's financial stability. I stood with Ben's folder. Before discussing threats, address $3.1 million in debt from questionable expenditures flowing to Whitaker-controlled companies. The room silenced like church before judgment. Confidential information requires board approval. Retired Judge Malcolm Forster spoke. HOAs must provide financial transparency. Debt this size affects every owner's liability. Then Gregory Whitaker Jr. emerged, smaller than expected but radiating the energy of inherited power. Mr. Harrison, perhaps we misunderstand each other. $2 million to relocate, plus consulting fees. Enough to buy any ranch in Texas. Enough to walk away clean. Mr. Whitaker, this isn't about money. This is about community deciding its own future. Ben connected his laptop to the projector. 15 years of property acquisition through manufactured distress. Your fees funded land speculation generating $26 million in profit. Spreadsheets filled the wall. Property transfers, shell companies, debt instruments tracing to Whitaker Holdings. Laura's voice cut through chaos. Our assessment money made him rich while poisoning my children? Evelyn's confusion appeared genuine. All expenditures were board-approved for community protection. Actually, Ben continued, Whitaker owns 60% of your debt. Every legal battle generated revenue for companies he controls. The realization hit Evelyn like discovering she'd been the villain in her own story. Whitaker's final threat died as I delivered checkmate. EPA suspended your permits 30 minutes ago. Your project ends here. As of this morning, we control HOA operations. New structure. Residents pay 60% less. Corporate owners pay triple. Properties owned by Whitaker companies will face the financial pressure you've applied to families for 15 years. 6 months later, Gregory Whitaker faced federal fraud and racketeering charges. His empire dissolved under court order, assets funding community restoration. Evelyn stocked shelves at the local market. Her home lost to the same foreclosure machine she once operated. The ranch springs ran clear. Native grasses replaced pipeline scars. A community garden fed families where steel would have run. Children visited storm and thunder without fear of diesel water. Harrison Community Solutions LLC now dismantles exploitative HOAs county by county. Slogan: "We buy the math that's buying you." The fight continues, one spreadsheet at a time, proving sometimes the best revenge is becoming better at their game than they ever dreamed possible. Tell me in the comments, when corporations weaponize community rules against families, do you fight with lawyers or learn their financial games and beat them at it? Have you watched neighbors lose homes to fine print and wondered if justice still exists for regular people? Take your stand. The land remembers who fought for it.